Hi, this is Alexcursus, a show where I take a look at some gunpla or figurine and see if they are authentic or not. This time, we are looking at the HGUC 1-144 MSM-03 Gogg. Gogg is the first amphibious assault mobile suit that Xeon adopted from Gimmick. Gimmick developed Gogg with an entirely new architecture, allowing it to be more streamlined underwater, enable it to go faster and dive deeper than its competition. This new architecture not only led to a plethora of Xeon amphibious assault mobile suits like the Gogg, but also enabled Gimmick to win other mobile suit competition later into the war. I'll be rating how authentic the Gogg is based on saga, style, action, gimmick, and absence. Style is how accurate does the gunpla look compared to its anime, manga, games, or other media's counterparts. And just like Gogg, the Gogg had been redesigned by Katoki Hajime, but being a fairly chunky design, it is pretty much how it looks like as it did in the anime, despite the slight lankiness if you really compare them. Other than that, the Gogg isn't quite one-to-one to the Gogg in build. The Gogg have a very, I would say, ahead of the time ABS skeleton inside, while Gogg, despite being its predecessor, only retain it with its arms. The rest of it is more similar to the GM, where it is basically hollow clamshells. But before we get too far into that, I would also like to mention how well a lot of the clamshell gap is hidden. Like for the torso, unlike Gogg, where there is nothing to really hide the gap, aside from, like, Gogg still have a big head to cover it, but without the deeper color and the shoulder armor to sort of reinforce it. Zogg's torso tend to not being as tight as Gogg here does. So as the rest of the body, the gaps are right underneath the arm so that you don't really see them. Even if I move the arm out of the way, they are very unnoticeable. Partly due to the darker color, but also everything around it are more interesting than these gaps. The legs, the thigh is a left-right clamshell, and again we have a natural parting separation here, so it is not very noticeable. Lower leg is less fortunate, a giant gap on the shin like the GM. Foot and knee are separate piece in separate colors, so it's knee joint. The hand, because it have to keep the tension tabs on the fingers or iron nails, there is quite a gap that would be noticeable on this side rather, but on the front, the thumb sort of cover it up. For part separation, I would say the Gogg is pretty good. There are few color correction, but the Gogg stickers only come with two parts. The back of the, or rather the track for the mono eye and the mono eye itself, I decided to paint the mono eye. It's just black, it's easy enough. And again, I use a germ sticker for the mono eye itself. More color correction needed is the grenade launcher on the top of the head. the torpedo missile launcher / missile launcher on the belly. The mega beam cannons needs color correction at the central pylon. Interesting enough, Katoki draw these central pylons as a cone, while Okawara draw them as these with a cutoff, basically a cone with a flat tip. And the HGUC Gogg went with Okawara's design in detail. So despite not entirely color correct, the shape is pretty correct. This is the Katoki redesign, and yeah, he have the central pylon in the mega beam cannon as cones. And then these basically leg joint covers, knee covers, the inner cover of the knee. They are supposed to be dark gray, metallic, whatever, half internal. It is still the same khaki as the shin or lower leg. It is a minor deduction in style, but not critical, especially. I mean, they could be very pronounced, like at the back, before we go into action. At the back, in the back, you can see them like as a whole, but they are not distractingly enough. I guess the color choices really helps with that. There is a bit of exposure of the polycap on the wrist. You can't really do much about that. The foot have propeller for thrusters, pelvis thrusters, a row of them as well. And then there are details for the water jet backpack. So very well covered in the propulsion department. Despite being overall very accurate to Okawara's design, the HGUC Gogg just does not translate everything quite as accurate as you would like to. Like some of them are minor color correction. Some color correction is not covered by the stickers, but some like the polycap exposure, you need a lot more work for them. I couldn't give it an S. It could only be an A because of the accumulation of these factors here. I guess if the stickers, like even though I probably wouldn't use it, if the stickers have color correction for the mega beam cannon, for the torpedo, and for the grenade launcher, even though I wouldn't use those stickers, I would probably give Gogg an S in style for how mostly faithful it is to the original design and only have some minor technical difficulties. Like, I don't think it's completely unavoidable. They do leave quite a bit of gap between the wrist joint and the actual connection, and the hand isn't fully flushed or like, you know, in specific angles. So if the kid, you know, invested in either direction a bit more, I would have give Gogg an S in style, but for now it is just an A. Action is not just articulation of the gunpla, but also how useful are those articulation. For the Gogg, its head is on a ball joint, but due to the shape of its head and neck, or lack thereof a neck, it can only turn slightly and can't really look up or down. But Gogg's supposed to be modeled after a deep diving suit, so the head having any movement is an improvement from that. Shoulder armor, like we have shown, is on a swivel, and the arms have ball joint for every segment, although the armor is kind of thick, so you don't get very far with that ball joint, but that's enough for some really freaky poses and motions. The hand or finger, I will leave it to the Gimmick, like most mobile suits, to be honest, and especially for Gogg, to be honest. The body has ab crunch, actually. You can swivel side to side a bit. It's mainly ab crunch. Yeah, I can slide the mega beam cannon down into the pelvis, but yeah, you don't supposed to. This is supposed to be as low as it should go. So a bit of movement, but not a lot. The thigh outwards 30-degree due to how thick the thigh itself is, and kicked about 45-degree. Again, it is super thick. The knee is a double joint supposedly, but again, due to how thick Gogg is, I can barely get it to 90 degrees. And then the foot have a lot of movement. It is a pig on a swivel that can also rock on the side. So a lot of movement on the foot. And then backpack is just a backpack. Despite faithfully recreate the flexible arms in the HGUC, Gogg is not very athletic, partly due to the original design, but also due to the kit's design. Today's technology, we will definitely get a lot more movement out of the Gogg. But you know, this is, I want to say second wave, but more like 1.5 wave of HGUC. So the action department is somewhat, there are a lot to be desired. Lead us to say it is not less flexible. No. Canonically, Gogg should be able to do a basic kneeling pose. I guess it can, sort of. Yeah, I guess it can. I feel like B is a bit harsh for action, but I guess I will go with B for now, because the Zog was able to pull a superhero landing, and the Gogg is a lot worse. Gimmick usually is where we take a look at the optional weapons as well as some onboard weapons on the mobile suit or other special equipments, and just mechanism in general that is operable on the model kit. For the Gogg, it has no optional weapons, not for the standard model, so that is not applicable. And for onboard weapon, we talk about the grenade launcher, most famously used to launch the freezing yarn, which is a gel, weird enough, that protect Gogg from underwater mines. There's no mechanism, nothing, just a little hole. The mega beam cannons, like UC or like HG in general, no effects to it. It's being here, it's good enough. The missile and torpedo launchers on the side, again, fairly common for HG to not have anything on it. So, you know, the existence is enough. The cockpit hatch, again, existence is usually enough. And Gogg just have no weapons on the leg. I have delayed long enough. Let's talk about Gogg's hand. It have individual fingers called arm nails. Weirdly enough, they are a full claw, and they are not iron. They are super hard steel, but I guess steel is kind of an iron alloy. Anyways, you can, like, the thumb goes into wherever you think the thumb will go, like a holding pose. You can also go for full fist, although the hand is fairly flat, so it just looks kind of wild. It is not quite all ranges. There is a tab inside to keep the thumb from wacky positions. Same for the fingers, but because their opening is wider, so they can go pretty wild. You can even do this. The hand and the iron nail is the biggest gimmick of Gogg and this kit, and it recreates them very well. There is a bit of downside because the iron nails are cast in ABS, so they are harder to paint. The benefit of that is that they are more durable for you to play around with. Take that what you will, and that's not it. I mentioned something about the freezing yarn. Gogg actually go into cruising mode for that. Allow me to put Gogg into cruising mode. This is the cruising mode, where Gogg tuck his arm under his shoulder armor to reduce drag. But for this model kit, we are only taking out the rest of the arm from the elbow and have the hand and the wrist installed on the side of the shoulder armor, giving the illusion that it is tucked in. If I haven't mentioned it already, Gogg is in a small box, much like Zog and GM. In fact, it's more like GM because it is slightly more expensive than the Zog. So I wouldn't get too hung up with this gimmick not being entirely accurate, that Zog can, hide the whole arm inside its shoulder armor. You can still see the ball joints for the shoulder at some angles, but in general, it is hidden pretty well. You just have to, take different angles for photographing, or you can block it like this maybe. No, it's a bit hard to hide, but yeah, if you're not going like this, you are pretty much fine. There's a lot of angles that you don't see it. The fingers or iron nail is just retained by the tensioning tape. They don't lock up, but they are stable enough. So no complaint for the cruising mode. So that's it. Gogg by design doesn't have too much gimmick to begin with. This kit basically cover them all. Some are better than the others. There are no extra parts though. Like, you can recreate the cruising mode easily, but there isn't anything extra that the Gogg can do that is not necessarily shown in the original series. So I have to keep it an A. Last and certainly least is absence. Like I said before, the Gogg is a small box, selling at the back then lowest price point-ish. It having the support for cruising mode is pretty enough for absence, in my opinion. If we are talking about modern entries, we might expect a freezing yarn effect, be it a full clear plastic shell or just a simple film that you can put in front of Gogg so that you can take a photo of it doing it. There are some gappings in the hand, like the ball joints are quite visible, and the polycap on the wrist is very visible. The legs don't move as far as the design hoped to be, rather. Being a double joint, barely making 45 degree isn't great, but I guess Gogg is strong enough so that it can kneel. I like how flexible the foot is. This harmonica covering, it would be great if they are in separate color as separate pieces. Wink, wink. I don't think this is a bad alternative from the Zogg's fully ABS internal frame. Yes, there are lots of mobility loss, but Gogg isn't super athletic to begin with. Being able to do quite a few actions is more than enough. I wish he can do a bit more. It will be an excellent kit if it can do more, but I think it does enough to represent Gogg faithfully, authentically. So in absence, there are lots of little bits that is not completely missed, just not fully realized. That give Gogg a A in absence. So to recap, Gogg get an A in style, despite how simple, classic HGUC look is. It have enough details around it, like the vents underneath the knee armor, a bit of details on the backpack, on the shoulder armor, at the back, at the butt rather. It is a very faithful recreation of Gogg in style. Action, the flexible arm offers quite a bit of action opportunities, but the rest of Gogg is still the early HGUC in combination with its own chunkiness. It couldn't really do much, so it only gets an B in action. For Gimmick, the fully articulated fingers and nail claw is a very good gimmick. But aside from this, Gogg have, well, okay, there is the cruising mode, but it is still the flexible arms and nail doing the work. Nowhere else does the Gogg offer other gimmicks, and there's no spare parts to speak of, or no extra parts for you to do other things to speak of. So Gogg only gets an A for Gimmick. And found the absence, like we have said, nothing really have been missed for the Gogg. Everything you see, at least in the anime or in general, about the Gogg have been done. Yes, there are little pieces missing here and there, but they are all present overall. So it is an A for absence as well. The verdict for the HGUC 1-144 Gogg is A for style, B for action, A for gimmicks, and A for absence. Overall, a very faithful, accurate version of the anime Gogg. It does not have much to start off with, and Bandai did not surprise us with anything. Although Bandai do spend a lot of effort recreating the main feature, which are the flexible arms and the claws. It is still a great choice if you want the first Zimat amphibious assault mobile suit in your collection, as well as if you want the amphibious assault group from Xeon. You would definitely want to include the HGUC Gogg. We can't go back in time to fix the Gogg, but if Bandai do revive the Gogg, there is a later architecture in the HGUC line that Bandai could definitely utilize Coffee Guy to make Gogg a lot better overall. But because that is also an ABS based architecture, I can see them going to the carpool direction, which wouldn't be too bad if Bandai keep it fun. I would say. I think Bandai should keep it fun over to mingling on some minor details. GM Type C. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.